All right, everyone, it's time for a windy garden update. So, you might hear a little bit of interference here. Look at the size of these collard plants. They're almost waist high, actually. Again, even the topmost leaves are bigger than my hand. The bottom ones are unfathomable. So, got to get those out and make another couple cuttings. You do it from the bottom generally, the larger leaves. They tend to be tastier, a little more savory. It's pretty good. And the morning glory, which at the moment are a little bit wilty because it's really sunny, humid, and hot, but they did get watered because it rained this morning. Those are getting ready, as you can see, just getting ready to maybe make some buds. So we'll see what happens. These peppers had to be cleared out a bit because they were being shaded by excessive numbers of mustard plants. So these look a little bit disheveled, but they'll actually be fine, and plenty of mustard to pick. These cabbages I don't think are ever really going to head up. This one might a little bit, but the rest of these are a little bit on the small side. We'll see what happens. Either way, I am going to eat them though. And then you can see this zucchini unfortunately appears to have wilt in it. There's not much to be done about it, but we'll get a few more zucchinis regardless, because look, there's some zucchini there, there's zucchini there. These look healthy. They got azomite, which is helping to prolong their resistance, I guess. And we've also got a ton of the spaghetti squash. Lots of spaghetti squash there. A couple are down there. There's a couple over there. A large number. Corn and beans. The wind is, blowing them over a little bit at the moment. Trying to take you through the corn. Some of this is about midriff to shoulder height. Most of it's between, hip and midwidth. They'll create corn. They are tasseling. It's just that some of it won't be quite so large. Lots and lots of Nicotiana, which unfortunately this time of day when it's hot and sunny, they fold up a bit, but the poppies are in full bloom. This is one of the poppies from my own line. They're somewhat mutated. A lot of them have extra little petals on the inside. You can see this one does too. It has a whole extra set on the inside there that replaces some of the reproductive structures. And I'm not exactly sure how that got bred into them, but they're pretty cool anyway. Some ripening tomatoes in there. That one's always going to be the first species. Look at all of the Romas. There's a massive number in there. Some of them are enormous. These ones too. Some of these Romas are about twice the size they normally are. Like even my grandfather, who was a whiz at gardening, I don't think he ever had Romas that were quite that big. And you can see some of the black princes in there are starting to turn yellow and ripen. These Cherokees, which are pretty great. Some of these, they're starting to yellow a bit. They're going to be ripe soon. We got cucumbers, like this one. It's a nice little cucumber there. Next year there's going to be about 4 times as many, and they're going to be hung up, so it'll be easier. There are also peppers, everything. This is a Cubanelle plant. It's a couple of those. We'll get 2 or 3, probably maybe a little bit more than that. We're actually going to get some jalapenos as well. Now what I've decided to do when the garden is expanded, the main garden is going to be right behind the house. This entire area that you're seeing right now will be abandoned as far as standard crops. It's going to be permacultured, which means I'm going to bring in a bunch of natural mulch along with hay, and I'm just going to pile it on layer by layer, probably twice a year, instead of weeding to suppress weeds and add more and more fertility to it until it's, several feet of really great agricultural soil. That's sort of how it works, sort of the goal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the burdock, which I think it's tasty. You can make it into a tea. It can be added to soup. Certain Japanese soups, I guess, use it. It's going to have burdock, lots and lots of horseradish, which is, again, a perennial. These things here, these big plants that have, leaves that are longer than my arm. And it's going to have a lot of asparagus. I just accidentally knocked down a pot. Sorry about that, flower. Yeah, you can see it's pretty much, that one's gone by. The petunias are still doing fairly well, actually, including the ageratum. Plenty of asparagus. And then there are a few other species, like, for instance, chamomile. It's not technically a perennial in this climate, kind of, It's more of a biennial, really. Like after 2 or 3 years, it tends to die back. But it's easily spread. It's almost impossible to get rid of. Rhubarb. Mustard, since that comes up so profusely, I'm thinking of leaving a few each year. Have a little bit of mustard back here. Nothing predates upon it. Other than that, though, this back area will be empty of anything that's not basically just a perennial flower. And then the rest of the crops will be right behind the house. That whole area, an enormous chunk of the lawn, almost a 1/4 acre of land, is going to be totally redeveloped. I'm going to have a fence installed. I'm going to have to install mulch. Drain that off. Mosquitoes and stuff. There's going to be a shit ton of crops. I've already sort of spoken about it on Twitter, basically. You know, I'm interested in growing more than we have now. I want at least twice as much space as is in here. Because even though this is a big garden, it's not big enough for for my uses. The other thing is I have to redistribute what kind of plants I am actually planting. Like, I love collards, but because nobody else around me likes them, this is excessive. There are too many. I can't eat them all. Even if I ate them every day, 2 meals a day, it'd still grow faster than I can eat them. Meanwhile, cucumbers, everyone loves pickles. So, yeah, I want, like I said, about 4 times as many. There's 5 plants over here in total. I want to have about 20. A massive number of cucumbers. And probably twice as many tomatoes, but mainly the Romas, because those are more easily canned. Like cherry tomatoes, you can blanch them off and can them, I guess. It wouldn't be as good. Roma's good for sauce. And then I believe that the Cherokee is good generally for like soups. It's more hardy, even though it's a purple color, so it's not going to look actually that tomatoey. I'd love to try to make a homemade ketchup. I know there was one time years and years ago, I think my parents tried to do that, and it was okay, but I think they didn't put any sugary, like anything sweet in it, so it was overwhelmingly salty, and it actually resembled Hunt's new recipe. Hunt's used to be the best ketchup. Unpopular opinion here, but now they're the worst, because they changed their recipe and they went with the organic, vegetarian, gluten-free, non-GMO sort of stuff, and that's great, but then they stopped adding anything that was sweet to it. And so their ketchup is just too salty. They should put it back the way that it was. And you can see here, the leaves on the turnips starting to die down, but the turnips are absolutely enormous in there. There's going to be a steak dinner probably in the next couple days, and then the rest I'll probably just pick and, I don't know, I'll have to process and freeze it or something. That turnip in there is, I mean, I don't even want to dig down under it to damage it, but it must be enormous. Some of them are absolutely deformed though. Look at this. This was picked the other day. Yeah. Look at this. Yeah, just a sec. Doesn't that look tasty? Yeah. Yum, yum. There's like a slug on it and stuff. It's like, fuck you. That's about all. Peace out.